Mahalo, and welcome to episode 1 of the Mahalo podcast. I'm your host, Mark Jigarjian, and I'm coming to you live from New York City. This is a new podcast. It's a new idea. I don't even know exactly what we're going to talk about. Some funny observations, some general observations. We're going to play some games. It's going to be interactive, and I know for a fact the show will change over time because I wanted to do an open format podcast where I'm open to talk about anything that's on my mind at any given time, on any given week, on any given episode. And so that's why we're here. You're still listening, so that's impressive. So about me a little bit. If you're new to listening to stuff from me, I'm a comedian. I'm a stand-up comedian. I tour when we're not in pandemic states. And I also love to cook. I'm a big fan of Michael Jackson. I'm a big fan of 80s movies like Back to the Future. And generally, I am curious about the world itself. And hopefully this podcast will lead to some interesting discoveries about the world, maybe about myself, maybe about yourself. I want you to be able to send information, stories, questions, quandaries here directly to the podcast, so I will be open to you, and hopefully you will be open to me, if that makes sense. Probably doesn't. Most people are probably tuning out, but that's okay. But as we start today, I want to say I'm new to a new part of the whole world. I feel like I'm joining a part of the world that I'm very excited about, and that is getting a newspaper in the morning. Who out there gets a newspaper in the morning? It's a wonderful experience. If you're not a newspaper person, I challenge you, get a newspaper in the morning. Very exciting. Now, I live in a building in New York City where I thought for sure that the newspaper was going to be a real pain to get. Like, I'm going to have to go downstairs. They put it in the mailbox. Every morning, I'm going to have to go search and find it. I was delighted to find out that the newspaper just gets dropped off at my doorstep every morning at like 4. So I literally open my door, and there's a newspaper right there in the morning, fresh, with a rubber band around it. Sounds like a very small thing, but as someone, I would consider myself a millennial maybe, we don't do newspapers. Everything is digital. But there's something about holding the newspaper in your hand. There's something about having it in your paws that makes the news feel more like you're in control of the news. You're in control of it. You can choose what articles you want to read based on the pictures. That's how everyone really does it, based on those pics. I get a newspaper that has full color pics. I'm not trying to brag. I think it was about the same as if you get no color pics. There's some newspapers that don't have any color pics. I mean, to them, I say, hey, listen, it's 2021. You wouldn't have black and white pictures on your website, so why are you doing black and white on your printed paper? I go full color on my newspaper. Very exciting. There's something about having the newspaper in your hand that makes you want to read things that maybe you wouldn't want to read on the internet, or you would maybe not sit through watching TV and watching the news on TV, which I think is unwatchable, in my opinion. So, what are types of things that I've been reading? I've been reading daily wacky tales. That's not what they call them, but I think they're called daily strange stories. And they're little paragraphs in the newspaper, and I think they're great. Like a protest was happening in upstate New York about a squirrel shooting contest. A squirrel shooting contest, and people were up in arms about killing the squirrels. In my opinion, I think squirrels are getting killed every single day. There's probably more squirrels killed on the way to protest this event on the streets than were going to be killed at this event, which I think is for children who are probably going to grow up to kill other types of animals. So I understand the point. But squirrel shooting seems not the biggest issue of 2021, in my opinion. And maybe there's a squirrel problem in this part of the state. Maybe squirrels are running rampant. Squirrels have I think squirrel is a rodent. I could be wrong on that. Is squirrel a rodent? I think squirrels are put into a category of small woodland creatures, but not rodents. Rodents, it never sounds good to be a rodent. People don't like rodents. Your rats, your mice, they're ugly. They're ugly creatures. But people love squirrels. People love a squirrel. I think there's a lot of animal prejudice going on in the world today. A lot of animal injustice. Why do you save a squirrel, but then there's a whole aisle at Walmart of how to murder rats? Genetically speaking, they're all about the same. There's not much difference between a rat and a squirrel. A squirrel is fuzzy, it has a cute tail, and looks like something you keep in your house. A rat is hideous, probably could give you the bubonic plague if you ran into the wrong one, but they're not that different. They got 4 legs, they eat nuts. Do they eat nuts? Squirrels eat nuts. Rats, I think, just eat whatever they want. But genetically speaking, there's probably 0.0001 of their genome that are different. But rats, you go into the store and you can get you can get a mat and they stick on it and they can't move, and then you murder it that way, or you give it poison, or there's little houses they go in and they eat stuff and then they go die in a corner somewhere, or there's mice traps where you put cheese on it and then a metal cleaver comes down and slaps it on its head and kills it. So you got 14-year-old boys who want to go out in Syracuse and kill a couple of squirrels, and people are going to go up in arms about that. What about the millions of rats that are be killing every day? You know what rats need? Rats need a new ambassador. Rats need a spokesman. Rats need a PR campaign to keep them around. Are there any medical or life benefits for advocating for rats? Maybe rats eat a lot of other insects that otherwise would be in your house. But I guess people would say I'd rather have a spider than a rat. That's why we need a PR campaign. We need to have a team on this. I think rats need a little bit more. I think rats need to have an advocate. I don't know if I'm the advocate, but they need one. They need one. Some of these animals out there people don't like. What about a possum? Possums, they eat trash. So they're kind of like a dirty animal, so they fall into a kind of a category like a rat. People don't like a possum. Possum's kind of cute though. If you've ever seen a possum, not that bad. Dogs, cats, the most protected of all the animals, except in China. And that's true. There's parts of China, you can watch some videos, they eat dogs. There's parts of the Asia, they eat dogs. They also eat guinea pigs. People have a big problem with eating your pet, and I don't blame them. I think it's gross. But that's the problem, I think, with humans today. We got to get on the same page and just kind of realize that we treat animals differently. Seems like everyone, and justifiably so, everyone wants to be equal as people, but when it comes to animals, we accept the fact that some we eat and some we throw a ball and play catch with. And the difference between them is very small. So this squirrel shooting thing, people are getting very upset about the squirrels, but then at home they'll go and have a steak dinner. It's because it's called steak and not cow, a cow dinner, where people eat it. I feel like anyone who's an animal activist should automatically be a vegan. And it really doesn't make sense if you're saying you protect squirrels, but then you have chicken that night. If you're saying murder the rats, and then you want to save the squirrels. You should want to save everything. That means if a rat ran through your house, you're like, wow, this is just another one of God's creatures. Maybe I could train it. Could be difficult, but you could be the first trainer of rats in the world. And maybe you could turn them around. Maybe they just haven't had the genetic care that dogs and cats have. Dogs were wolves, which weren't that appealing, but someone took the time to break them in. And maybe someone needs to break in rats. And maybe they need a name change. Maybe they're called garbage squirrels. The hairless squirrel. What would that be like? What if we called rats hairless squirrels? Would that change anything? Or the New York squirrel? Would that change anything? It would certainly make it a little less scary. That's for sure. There's also a lot of terms I don't really understand, and I was thinking about this the other day with a friend. A lot of terms out there that I don't really understand. Someone said this to me today. He said, why don't you go, don't worry about it. You can always turn a new leaf. And that saying doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Turn a new leaf. I don't even have leaves to begin with. I don't have leaves to turn. And it seems like if you're using leaves as an analogy or a metaphor, then wouldn't you want to take your old leaf? If the leaf is something bad that happened, wouldn't you want to take your old leaf and turn over that leaf to be the new start? Why do I have to go outside to a tree, get a new leaf to turn over? And what are we actually even talking about? Who came up with this? Turn over a new leaf. It's not even comforting. Turn over a new leaf. What's on the other side of the leaf? It's still the same leaf. It's still the same leaf. One part of the leaf is a little different color, but that's it. So you've turned over a leaf. What has that done for you? So that phrase doesn't make a lot of sense. Lukewarm. When something says, oh, this is lukewarm, named after a person? Is Luke a guy? Was Luke a guy that was just, was he not the hottest guy and not the ugliest guy? Kind of Luke, right in the middle. And then someone went to go boil water and it wasn't quite hot enough and it was kind of just average. And they're like, that reminds me of my friend Luke. That's very Luke. This water is Luke. Average, 5. Medium, tepid. Lukewarm. Who's the original Luke? Love to know that. I would love to know that. Is there an ancestor of the Lukes, of lukewarm, who just goes to restaurants bragging about it? Does he get free meals for it? Hey, that chef, tell the chef before he boils the water that water is named after me when it's in a pre-boiled state. Go tell chef when he takes the water out of the sink in the medium range of possibilities that temperature is named after my great-great-great-grandfather, Luke. And I'm his grandson, Luke the 5th. And I'm here for ribs. What are you going to do for me? I'd be pretty cocky. I'd be cocky if I was a great-great-grandson of the original Luke. Lukewarm. A lot of sayings like that don't make a lot of sense, but you say them. I wish that I had a higher command of dad jokes and sayings and things like that. My grandfather used to say it's like shoveling shit against the tide. Love that. And he would say it with authority. I have that one in the back of my head sometimes to bring out. Shoveling shit against the tide, or like pissing into the wind, or like two ships passing in the night. My dad used to tell me that one. I never see you anymore. We're like two ships passing in the night. I didn't even know what that meant at that time. You have to grow up a little bit, read books to figure out what he's talking about is about colonial America, when ships would pass each other without geolocating devices, and they would pass each other, and they wouldn't even know they passed each other because it was nighttime and they couldn't even see each other. These are old school phrases, and these are some of the ones that I know, but there's so many more that I don't. And you go into a restaurant and there's an old guy sitting at the corner of the bar. He's got hundreds of them. He's got hundreds of phrases. He doesn't even speak in English as we know it. He speaks in old school phrases. And if something goes awry in his life, he's got a dad joke right there ready to back it up. Right there to emphasize the situation. You know who also have a lot of dad jokes? Golfers. It's like you pick up a club, you learn how to play, you get around your first 18 holes, and what do you get next? You get 1,500 jokes about golf and your friends you're playing with and how you suck at it. Golfers got a lot of jokes. And as you get older, you get worse at golf, but your jokes get way better. Hey, Mr. Thomas, how was your round out there today? It was like army golf. Left, right, left, right. Mr. Lewis, how was your round? Well, everything was good, besides the company. On and on and on and on. On and on and on and on. Golf jokes, dime a dozen. A lot of golf jokes out there. But it's just having the command of the English language, of all the great phrases out there that I wish I had more of. And unfortunately, I don't. I don't have as many as I'd like. If you have some that you say, you can send us an email or put it in the description, the comments, below. Put some that you like in the comments. And maybe I'll try to start using them. If you guys put a phrase in the comments, I'll try to use it on the next episode. How's that? And how many could we possibly get? There's probably only going to be 6 people who watch this. There could be 6 new phrases that I could learn. If all 6 people who watch this front to back put it in the comments. Will they do that? I don't know. Other things that I'd like to do on this podcast that I think would be fun is a segment called My Best Advice, where you ask me a question and I will give you my best advice on any given subject. Now, am I an expert on anything? Absolutely not. But I think that through my travels as a stand-up comedian, in my time in New York, I have a pretty good range of advice that I could give. And I feel like people reach out to me, friends, family, for advice regularly, so I will be offering that on this podcast as well. Another segment that I'd like to start is called Your City Sucks, where you could say, Jiggy, I'm from Cincinnati, and it sucks because of these reasons. Maybe you send me an email, and I will do more research on why your city sucks. And the premise of this is that I think anywhere I've been in the country, no matter how nice, from Paris to Hawaii, people complain about where they live. It's just what you do. So this segment will be an homage to cities around the world, but also pointing out some of their major flaws, which I think will be fun. And again, that segment will be called Your City Sucks. Other segments that I have dabbled on, I can try to give love advice too. We can try to make this a love advice channel. I don't know how far that's going to go, but I want to be here for you. I want to do giveaways to our listeners. I want to make sure that you guys are invested in this podcast as much as I will be invested back to you, and that means by giving away certain things in episodes, from cash prizes, Venmo transactions, sending stuff from our studio here in New York City to your home, so that we are not only a community of listeners, but there's some perks along the way. I think that's important with starting something new. And this is my first video podcast too. So I'm open to suggestions about things that you want to see to make this more fun for you as well. I do love to cook. So along the way, I might be putting some recipes in the comments for you to try. And I'd love to see how those come out for you. Will there be guests on the podcast? Excellent question. Maybe. As you know, we're coming out of a pandemic right now, so having guests on a podcast is not that easy, and I'm not a fan of having virtual attending guests. I've never listened to podcasts where someone Skypes in. It never matches the quality, so I decided a long time ago, 10 seconds ago, that we're not going to have virtual guests. If I have a guest, it will be right here in the New York City studio, but it will not be virtual. I think that's for the betterment of the show. And I hope you agree with that. So this is going to definitely be a hodgepodge of different ideas. It's going to be funny at times. I'm going to talk about the world at times and be reading some of the things that you send in at times as well. So that's that. I will say that I got something funny in the mail. The pandemic has definitely led to some very situations that are not easy for people. And I think the wedding situation for people has been very, very tough. And it was very funny to me that this year was the first time I ever got uninvited to a wedding. I got uninvited to a wedding. And it was interesting because the amount of thought that went into the uninvitation letter I thought was maybe a little bit too much. And I don't know if there was like so many people going that you couldn't just give me a call and be like, hey, listen, like we're not going to be really doing the wedding like we thought we were going to do, so we have to uninvite you. But what a difficult, weird thing to do. And I think 2020, 2021 is the only time in history that you would have to like invite and uninvite someone, or maybe uninvite like a whole group of people. Hey, Jiggy, we'd love to have you at the wedding. So right there, I'm thinking, well, of course, we're friends. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to have you at the wedding because of the virus. So we're going to have to resend our invitation. It's like in this beautiful card. Like, who color coordinates a rejection on an invitation? But it was beautifully done. They had to go out to the store. They had to go buy the cards, match them up, buy the stamps, all in the calligraphy, handwriting, the whole 9 yards on the envelopes. That it could have been done by text. Send me a text. Hey, Jake, I don't think we're not going to have people. You got to send a whole card that I think I'm going to have to put a magnet on my fridge as another reminder. How many reminders do we need, by the way, for a wedding? How many reminders does it possibly need? We reached out when you got engaged. Then you set the date. You reached out again. Then you sent it over, save the date. Then I get another official date. Then there's like a magnet that you sent. You send me in the mail. You send me a magnet that goes in my fridge. I've been looking at your faces for a year and a half now. Then finally, we're 2 months away from the wedding. Then I get another thing in the mail that's the uninvitation. What do I do with the magnet now? What do I do with the magnet? Do I throw away the magnet of your face and the wedding date, or do I keep it on the fridge until you get married? Is it safe to throw out the magnet, or am I supposed to be so pumped that you're getting married and now I'm uninvited that I just hold on to it on the fridge? You tell me. I don't know what to do with it. What do you do with the magnets after the wedding, even if you go? Do you throw that out? I'm not a huge fan of other people's love. Not a huge fan of other people's joy. And I think that engagement photos are disgusting. Like, no one wants to see you piggyback riding, or what is it when you giving someone your fiance a piggyback ride on a mountaintop. No one wants to see you on one knee. I knew you in college when we used to drink and have fun, and you were an actual human being. Now you're in Dockers and a bow tie on one knee in Savannah, Georgia, on a cobblestone street. And I have to keep that on my refrigerator for a year and a half. It's gross. You know what would solve all that? I think the fiance girl, should send out her invitations to her girlfriends exactly the way that she would do it, which is what we all get now. Color-coordinated calligraphy bullshit with pictures and magnets and all that stuff. Girls love that. Whether they have it or they don't have that type of love. Because if they're in a relationship, they just start peer pressuring their partner to do the magnet love that they see on their fridge every day. And if they don't have it, then they aggressively start seeking it. And they want it. And they want to be reminded that someday they'll have it. Girls love that. They love the magnets. Guys, on the other hand, there's not one guy on the planet who gets a wedding invitation with the magnet RSVP reminder thing and is like, oh, sweet, Chad's getting married and he's in corduroys now on the beach in a bow tie. This is so Chad. Guys should do it completely differently. Guys, on the other hand, guys should just text their friends. Yo, Jimmy, I'm getting married. Yo, Jimmy, you remember the girl? Yo, Jimmy. Or it could just be an abbreviation. Jimmy, getting married in May. Can you come? Jimmy's like, yeah. All right, dope. I'll send you this deets later. Guys should just send everything by text. And no invitee would be upset about it on the guy's side. Family goes into the girl circle because I think family cares about that. Grandmas love it. I know there are girls, uncles, the elders, they like the pageantry of the magnets. the color coordination. So family would be handled by the girl. But any bros, any guys, exclusively handled by the groom via text. And that's it. So my uninvitation, I think, should have been a text. I think if the bride wanted to uninvite, then I would only assume that she would send the color-coordinated disinvitation letter as she would the RSVP and the official invitation. But then they still ask for cash. Which is an interesting conundrum. We're disinviting you, but if you do want to contribute still to the wedding, you still can. That's true. You still can. But do you? Do you still send, if you get invited to a wedding, you get uninvited, do you still send a gift? Tough. What do you do? Depends on how close the friend is. But if you were that close, you wouldn't have been uninvited in the first place. And if you're not that close at all and you get uninvited, you're probably not thinking about what kind of gift you're going to send. That's a conundrum. I think you don't send the gift. I think if you get uninvited, you don't have to send a gift. But I wonder what you think about that. If you got uninvited from a wedding, would you send a gift? Tough to say. You're not nearly going to put as much thought in it as if you got invited. But you'd have to send it by mail. You'd have to go out. I don't know if people want a physical gift anyway, so you'd have to send cash. What are you going to Venmo it? Are you going to put it in an envelope and send it in the mail? Are you going to buy a Vitamix and mail it? Are you going to Amazon something to their house? Are you going to go into their registry at Bed Bath & Beyond and buy them a toaster with their initials on it once you got uninvited? I'll tell you one thing. You definitely were in line to get an engraved toaster before you uninvited me, before you pandemiced me. Or maybe instead of uninviting, maybe you say, we really want you to come. It's okay if you can't. We know you can't because of the pandemic. Maybe you put it on the guest. Like, we know the pandemic's happening. So if you can't come, it's totally okay. And most people don't want to go to your wedding anyway, so they probably would take that as an opt-out and not come. You don't even have to uninvite people. If you give them the option, all you'd have to say is, listen, we understand what's happening. So if you can't come, you can let us know, and that's totally fine. We really want you to be there, though. We'd really love to have you. We'd love to have you. But if you can't come, it's okay. Check yes or no in the pre-labeled little envelope that's in here and send it back to us. Also with your choice of dinner, chicken or steak or fish, if you can't attend. Not a lot of plus ones coming out nowadays either. This is pre-pandemic. Not a lot of plus ones. Not a lot of people get the plus one. I feel like before 2010, let's say 2010, everyone got a plus one. The 2010s, as the millennials are starting getting married, not as much plus ones because people have to fly in, more expensive. Do you even go at that point if you don't have a plus one? The plus one was the most fun. I mean, there's movies written about plus ones. I need a wedding date, so you just grab some girl you meet the night before. It's like every romantic comedy ever. The plus one was all the fun. If you don't have a plus one, what do you do? No plus one plus pandemic? If you had an option to get out of that, you probably would get out of that. I think for sure you would get out of that. And you wouldn't send a gift. No gift. No mas. All right. I think that's going to do it for our first Mahalo episode. I think you kind of get the vibes. We're going to have a lot of different segments. We're going to have a lot of other things that we're going to get to at this podcast. This is just an introduction of rant, raves, observations, and other things that we're going to try here. I hope you enjoyed yourself as much as I enjoyed being here solo dolo with you. My name is Mark Jigarjian. You can find me on Instagram at Jiggy Comedy or on all social medias under at Jiggy Comedy. I hope to see you on another episode. And until next time, mahalo and deuces. Jiggy out.